Hello, this is ldelsack, and welcome back to the Draconic Chart. In the last talk, part 8, we began looking at the synastry between the Draconic Chart and the natal horoscope, focusing particularly on draconic planets that fall on the angles of the natal horoscope, because those planets, as we know within the natal, any planet that falls at an angle is going to be emphasized. And it's the same with the draconic planet falling on the natal angles. They will have great importance in terms of the energies that they're bringing into this lifetime. Now, when we look at the synastry between these two horoscopes, we want to focus on conjunctions first, because those are the most important aspects. Then we can look at oppositions. Now, we're talking about draconic planets in conjunction or opposition with natal planets or points in the horoscope. Squares can be just as important, particularly tight squares. You really want to keep the orb tight in terms of these aspects, but I explained this in the last talk, where you can widen the orb a bit for the conjunction and opposition. But with squares, keep them tight, maybe under 3 degrees, because you want to really highlight what's most important. And that's what I'm going to show you in this talk, using the example of the horoscope of Yogananda. Yogananda was an Indian yogi and guru who was instrumental in bringing the teachings of meditation and Kriya Yoga to the Western world. He's probably best known for his best-selling book, Autobiography of a Yogi, which introduced several generations of readers to the teachings of yoga and Hinduism. I will be using the birth data for Yogananda, born on January 5th, 1893, at 8:38 p.m. in Gorakhpur, India. This data comes from Astro Data Bank, which rates it as an A rating from memory. Also, Astro Theme has this information. I have seen other birth times for Yogananda, but this is the chart that I'm going to be using. Any planets configured with the ascendant-descendant axes are important planetary forces coming in ascendancy at the time of birth. And in Yogananda's synastry between his draconic and natal, we see draconic Mars in the sign of Pisces oppose the natal ascendant. He enters this life with the forces of Mars and Pisces. So we could interpret that as applying his energy into areas that have to do with spirituality, mysticism, particularly in interaction with the world as it sits right on the descendant, the world and the public. Note that Mars in Aries in the natal chart is the final dispositor in the 8th house of alternative healing arts such as yoga and meditation practices. So in this lifetime, through the angular draconic Mars, we know that natal Mars will be a key player in this lifetime. We can confirm as well that Pisces is a key force, since the draconic Neptune conjuncts the natal north node in the 9th house. In addition, Neptune with Pluto symbolizes the supernatural. In the natal chart, this conjunction is elevated in the 10th house in the sign of Gemini, so we can say communicating about esoteric matters. In the draconic chart, the conjunction in Taurus suggests that he must give structure to it and preserve security through it by broadcasting and spreading it throughout the world. Through synastry, we see that the draconic Neptune-Pluto conjunction is glued to the natal north node. And this all takes place in the 9th house, another confirmation of the importance of the 9th house matters, internationalism, spreading the word around the world about yoga and meditation. And further in the draconic chart, Neptune rules the 9th house, and Pluto rules the teaching 5th. That's looking at the draconic horoscope alone. In 1917, Yogananda began his life's mission with the founding and running of a school for boys that combined modern educational techniques with yoga training and spiritual ideals. This is the path his soul is determined to take in this lifetime. There's no doubt about it. And just to deflect any doubts, Notice how Draconic Sun in Sagittarius is opposed the natal conjunction of Neptune and Pluto, the Draconic Sun in Sagittarius. This is where his true identity's energy needs to be applied in Sagittarian and ninth house matters. Ninth house, which is symbolic of publishing, and Yogananda's book Autobiography of a Yogi has been translated into 18 languages and still remains a bestseller today. Also, the Sagittarius energies coming in reflect what he taught his students, the need for direct experience of truth as opposed to blind belief. He once said that, quote, the true basis of religion is not belief, but intuitive experience. Intuition is the soul's power of knowing God. To know what religion is really all about, one must know God. Knowing yourself is the key to understanding God. So a heavy religious overtone in his teachings, and of course the internationalism. Now we also see the Draconic Midheaven in the sign of Aries, which brings in the symbolism of being a pioneer, and it falls in the 8th house conjunct Jupiter in Aries. So again, we see that there are certain things emphasized in terms of Jupiter's symbolism with being a teacher, internationalism, publishing, in the 8th house area of alternative healing subjects. And also what's interesting is that the midheaven being in the Draconic midheaven falling in the sign of Aries is disposited by what planet? Mars. And we see the importance of Mars, right? Draconic Mars is coming in on the ascendant-descendant axes in the natal, and the Mars in Aries in the natal is the final dispositor. Another very interesting configuration we can focus in on is the natal Saturn opposition with Jupiter, which actually is a T-square with natal Sun. So the Sun, the natal Sun, squares the Saturn-Jupiter opposition. What happens in the Draconic is that that configuration, that T-square, again, it now lines up with the natal Neptune-Pluto conjunction in the 10th. So we can see how that T-square has such importance. So in the Draconic, it lines up with that natal conjunction, which is communicating about spirituality through the profession, isn't it? Neptune with Pluto in Gemini. So this Saturn opposed Jupiter falls into Saturn in Virgo, Jupiter in Pisces in the Draconic, which suggests the need to prove a point, the sense of purpose in life, and that opposition, again, with the Sun driving it, lines up perfectly with the Neptune-Pluto. And so we know that that Neptune-Pluto conjunction is important. We know it's important. We see it's important again as in the Draconic, Neptune and Pluto are conjuncting his North Node, the direction, purpose of this lifetime for Yogananda. And a final observation, the Sun-Moon midpoint in Yogananda's natal horoscope and in the Draconic is exactly opposed the Jupiter midheaven midpoint. However, in the Draconic chart, this midpoint configuration falls on the Aries point. So we know that it is publicly well defined. With the change of signs in the Draconic chart, Jupiter is in Pisces, the midheaven is in Aries, the Sun is in Sagittarius, and the Moon in Cancer. So think about those energies. They are terribly potent and clearly descriptive of Yogananda. In the Draconic chart by itself, Jupiter is situated in the 8th house and ruling the social services 6th, which speaks undoubtedly of serving others through alternative healing arts such as yoga and meditation. In both charts, we find that configuration, Sun-Moon equals Jupiter midheaven, spanning across the instructive, educational, international 3rd, 9th axes. Eberton describes the Jupiter midheaven midpoint as a noble and fine human soul, the attainment of successes, consciousness of aim or purpose in life, optimism, generosity, contentment, and he says it is a great gift of the gods to find a noble and fine human soul. So that's a wrap-up on Yogananda and Synastry in this lesson. Thanks for listening.